Welcome, everyone. This is Tara Reed. I'm your host. This is the Politics of Survival, and we have an amazing show today. I have with me Maria Butina, who is a deputy in the Russian Federation at the State Duma, and she is also an author of a book called Prison Diaries, where she talks about her harrowing account when she came to the United States and was imprisoned. Maria, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's very nice to have a conversation in English, believe it or not. I quite miss speaking English sometimes because now I'm full-time in Russia and actually banned for life to go to the United States because I guess I am a national security threat. But anyway, thank you for having me here.
Well, what touched me about your story that was, first of all, many Americans thought it was a travesty of justice, just that as was expressed by your homeland, that of the way you were treated in the U.S. But one thing that I found really interesting was how generous you were towards America, even after you were in prison for 15 months. Could you talk a little bit about coming to America, what your hopes and dreams were, and then what transpired?
Well, believe it or not, my dreams and hopes are still the same. I do believe that Russians and Americans should be friends, and they can be friends despite of the actions that the U.S. government is taking right now. It's very sad for me to see how the Russian card is played in favor of some political elites in the United States. It's very sad because I understand that they need somebody to blame for the problems that are internally in the United States in this, fight between different political parties and Democrats and Republicans. And I do understand this, but you just cannot make somebody an evil just because you need to solve some internal problem related to, for example, even the BLM. So when I came to the United States, all my hopes were to get a degree. I passed my exams, my GRE, and successfully. So I was accepted to a very good school, I believe, and I'm very satisfied with the experience that I had in American University in Washington, D.C. To study in SIS, the School of International Service. And I finished it in 2018. 2 months after that, I was arrested.
Could you tell me like what that was like and what was happening in your life at that moment?
Well, basically, I just got my OPT. It's optional practical training program. Is when you can extend your visa for 1 more year to kind of get an experience working in the US. And for I think maybe a year and a half, I've been working for a professor in American University School of Business. And we did quite well together. I was his assistant. So he offered me a position to help him to do some research on teamwork, believe it or not. So I accepted it, and the United States government, again, believe it or not, they got me permission to start my OPT program. So I was basically just packing, my bags to move to a different place in the United States to actually start my OPT program in the US.
So you were at the beginning of your career.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the day, look, I wanted to work in Russia because having an American degree and, my English is quite fine, I believe. It's not perfect, but I can still express myself. So I thought it would be wonderful to have some experience working in the US, and then you come home and, you're a very highly paid workforce. So I accepted the possibility to work for the school. And maybe I was thinking maybe another career path for me could be a PhD, getting a PhD, because I'm a scientist for the whole my life. I got 2 diplomas from the Altai State University. Actually, this is here, goes back to Siberia, where I was born and grew up. So, yeah, and I made all the procedures right. And in the day when I was about to move to a different place, 12 FBI agents with rifles and in life vests, they came into my apartment, they arrested me, and next time I'd see the outside world, even kind of be outside of the prison walls, it's going to be 10 months after that because they didn't let me to go even outside.
10 months?
Yeah, I know it shouldn't be, and I believe it shouldn't be. And then I believe that because of Russian position, I've never been a Russian agent. I've never been paid. It has never been in my court documents. Like I didn't harm anyone. Even the probation service wanted me to just have time served and move on. However, the prosecutors decided to ask for me 18 months. And Russia was very, very vocal about this situation because it's a total injustice. I was just a civilian, just a student. And I do believe that thanks to this loud position, I came back home not after 15 years. I was about to get 15 years for acting as a foreign agent in the US, and it ended up for 15 months and 10 days. 4 months of that I spent in solitary confinement, which was, I guess, the hardest one. 6 different prisons. So I quite good tour.
How long did you spend in solitary confinement?
4 months. And it wasn't even solitary confinement, it's called administrative segregation. This is how they avoid to comply with rules because according to the foreign international standards, it's a torture. This is a torture because it changes your brain chemistry. And you cannot fully recover from this because it's a trauma to be isolated, to be in a box, basically in a concrete box.
Yes.
So yeah, and they kept me there 4 months, explaining that first they put me on suicide watch. They didn't give me sleep. I was woken up every 15 minutes with a flashlight in my eyes because they just said, I quote, it's for my own safety reasons. Because I have a high profile case. So they punished me for talking about me on media. Like this is incredible. Like it's the most stupid argument I've ever heard in my life. But anyway, they put me on administrative segregation. So the whole world thinks that this is just about how they call it special housing for special needs people in prison, inmates. This is just, a different word for the same thing. But in fact, yeah, for 117 days, I counted every day because it was a disaster. Yeah.
How did you, I tried to get your book and I've not been able to get it in the United States. Is it available in the United States or Europe right now, your book, Prison Diaries?
Oh, this is a very interesting story, believe it or not, because here's what happened. So I was talking to a couple of maybe 3 or 4 different agencies that promote books and translate them all over the world. And believe it or not, the United States is still writing about me for the Wall Street Journal, but no one, surprisingly, take responsibilities to translate my book and offer to American public. This is very interesting. So every agency I would contact and say, oh, like, take it for free, even this is fine. I just want people to know the truth. Not because I want my story sad, but because many girls in prison who are there, I believe many of them justly and badly treated. I promised them that I'm gonna tell to the world that what they do in prisons with Americans. These are Americans. Many of them are blacks. Many of them are Latin. Many of them are white. It doesn't really matter. But they are dying without medication, dental care, in solitary confinement boxes. Like I promised to these girls, they didn't care if I'm Russian, so they took me as a part of the family. Many of them. They gave me food, they gave me water when I needed it. They talked to me when I needed it. This is like a really biblical story. So I promised to tell to the world the truth, but when I was, I was on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl,
Yes.
and I told them everything about what I'm telling you now. And guess what? They cut it out, every single word about the conditions we had. Like nobody cares.
Oh, you know, I was listening to your RT interview where you read a chapter of the book, and it literally put me in tears. First of all, it's very beautifully written, Maria, the chapter that I heard you read. Secondly, I don't think most of our listeners and the American listeners know the conditions of the prison. Could you, and I don't want to, uh, traumatize you or cause problems that way. So you tell me how much you want to share, but could you share a little bit about the conditions so we can kind of get that word out, especially because and you may have heard that now they're going to extradite Julian Assange, who to the United States. He just lost the case, and the United States government is planning to bring him on espionage charges, and he'll be incarcerated in a similar way that you were. So could you describe what that's like?
Well, what they about to do with Julian Assange is like a death penalty because he's facing 175 years. So basically, this is the worst death you could imagine. It's slow, it's painful, and it's alone. So he's going to be kept in the maximum security prison because of his charges. It means he's going to be kept on solitary confinement. It means he's going to be for the years and years alone, going crazy around just concrete walls. And nobody's going to hear. He's going to get some, free time, which means you can only go outside of your cell for a couple of hours in the middle of the night. For me, it was from 1 to 3 a.m. in the morning, so you don't see anyone. Actually, in like my first months that I spent in Alexandria Detention Center, I had a wonderful view from my really narrow windows. This wonderful view was a brick wall, like a red brick wall. That's it. So like this is a torture, and I'm terrified to even think what is expecting Julian Assange to have, because it's cruel, right? You just you just don't put him on a very slow death. When I tried to get medication, I had a very bad condition with my leg because they only give you a t-shirt. It's going to be cold there. It's really cold. So I look, many people when I give speeches about the prison experience, they say, why do you repeat over and over that it's cold? Because it's when you cannot escape. It's just your bones. You feel the bones are just cold all the time. And you have only one blanket. If you have a corner cell, you have two, but it doesn't help you really very much. So it's always cold, and but the worst part is there is nobody. So you live in your own mind, and many people start, they go on medication. Oh, they're gonna prescribe you medication. You're gonna be sleeping all the time. But I've had a girl. Her cell was in front of my cell, and can you imagine? She has been sleeping for like whole day, like 23 hours, and then 1 hour she would eat at dinner, and she's gonna go back to sleep. So it's like a vegetable. You make a person. The body is alive, but the brain is not, and you just can't do it with people. I'm one of very few people, I guess, in Russia who understand the Black Lives Matter problem, because how can you have the majority of the population in prisons, Black and Latinos, if they are the minority in the United States in general? And there are a lot of Blacks. So these people, they're treated really badly. And if they go to prisons, it means that kids lose their parents. It means they're going to go on the streets, they're going to do drugs and prostitution, and they're going to steal and go to prison. The generations of people go to prison with no proper education. Do they have a chance in life, like really equal chance? No, they do not. So the aggression, I do understand. And look, believe me, I came to prison. I've never lived in a Black community, but they changed me. They changed me because I understand their pain now, and I understand what they're trying to make. They're trying to really make America an equal country for everyone, and it's not. So yeah, I've seen this, and I know I can talk a lot about the conditions, because like talking about proper medication, talking about sleep deprivation, talking about the psychological torture when there was there. So the guards that were guarding me, just me, because I'm on solitary in Washington detention center, they every 15 minutes, additionally to waking me up, they would push a special button which is going to make it this, very loud beep sound. And so it just drives you crazy. So this is why this is a psychological torture. Like they know what they do. They know what they do. And then you see this magic doctors who would come to you and they would prescribe you meds if you need to. And they're gonna ask you questions while you're on meds. It's just slowly killing people. So that's what I mean.
How did you, because 4 months is a very long time to be in solitary, how did you get through those days and muster strength to get through? Did you have a regime or a discipline that you did to keep yourself healthy?
Yeah, I actually did. So what helped me is the regime of their working out, reading, writing, doing yoga, meditate. Uh, like you cannot have free time. You should not, because once you just sit and look in the window, you see the brick wall. So you go crazy. You have what you Americans call a monkey's mind, is when you start thinking about the worst case scenarios. It drives you crazy. You don't want your brain to, kind of free driving. No, free riding. No, you don't want that. So I made a schedule very tight, and I would read certain chapters that my priest would give to me. It's a separate procedure. It's very hard, by the way, to get books because they need, if you want the religious books, just religious books, okay? Your priest must register as a volunteer. It takes about 2 months. And then he brings books to the chaplain of the church. And then they check them out. And then they maybe give it to you. So once I would get it, I would, make notes, and happily I had writing, like a pad and a pencil. And so I would write, and I just kept myself busy as much as I could. And I also, it's hard to talk a bit now, but I actually, at some point, I think I crossed the line, and now I don't like crowds anymore. I was a very social person, but now I prefer to just my own time, to be alone. And I'm a very public person, but believe it or not, I don't I don't know if I kind of came back fully, because I still have this impression that I'm back among people, but I'm still alone, because again, it traumatizes you a lot.
Right. And is being home around your family and a support system and positivity, is that helping kind of integrate your spirit back into the world?
It does.
Yeah.
However, it does. However, I will always be different, and I will never be able to explain to anyone what do I feel, because nobody else can happily share with me this experience. and be empathic enough. So look, many people don't want to talk to me about it because they say, oh, you should just forget it. And I say, no, because if I forget it, it means that all the people that I had around that I want to help by talking to you, by telling the story to the world, you cannot torture people. So I want to remember these people because the inmates that were with me, because I promised them to tell the truth to the world. This is what I do right now. I must do this.
Well, I hope that we get the book to the United States. I think it's important that Americans read about it since it was an experience in America. And, you've been very generous in your interviews saying that you still like America, even despite what happened to you. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what happened when you went into, when you were incarcerated. Did those people that you were friends with stay in touch with you since you've gone back to Russia? Have you been able to keep some of your friendships, or has everything fallen away?
This is the hardest topic because I had to stop all the relationships. Look, these people are, many of them are on probation now. And I do understand that I am a national security threat, meaning if we stay in touch, they can blackmail these people. So by saying that they're going to go back to prison, if and they need to, who knows, pass me some information or some disinformation or something. So I cannot, it's painful because, there is a woman. She became for me like a mother. I write about her, it's a whole chapter. Her name is Fini. And I had to write the worst letter in my life, the hardest letter, saying to her that I have to stop relationships with her. She became me like the mother. She saved my life. When I came from solitary, I was so thin, and I forgot what's the name of my parents. I was very bad, and she made me eat. She made me kind of she made me to believe that there are good people again. And it took me time to just open my heart to her. She's wonderful. And I had to when I was back and she was still there, I helped her and we talked and I did everything I could to keep her covered during her stay there. Once she was out, I had to write the letter saying like, I needed to support you because I couldn't just stop communication with you because you're in tough conditions and I have to be on your side. But once you're out, you're with your family, I cannot put your life at risk. So we had to stop communication. Like if she listens to me, I just want, if I may, she's Jewish and she taught me a lot. I just want to say that I still love her. She's wonderful and she saved my life. I will always remember this as well as every member of my family. Every time we meet together, she's an American. Every time we meet together with my family for a family dinner, my mom always has a special toast for Finny, my second mom. This is why I cannot hate Americans, because there are people who have been saving my life. There were people who were killing me, but thanks for the other side, different Americans, I am with you today and I have the ability to talk to the world.
Your voice is really important. And, you're a survivor and you've shown the world compassion in the face of the greatest adversity. I think that spiritually you faced a great test of your own, that not many of us have to face. And that's with trying to maintain our humanity in the worst of conditions.
I believe in God and I know that you shall not make the world a bad place. And God teaches us forgiveness. Believe it or not, I forgave the prosecutors and the FBI like very soon because I won't be able to survive with hate in my soul. So I let it go. However, I'm going to fight to the last breath for every Russian who is detained unjustly, for the Americans that are treated in the US prisons unfairly and very badly, just because it's about people. I forgive them what they did with me, but I have to fight for other souls so they never have what I've been through.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's for other people that you want to speak up and speak out about it. It's not about critiquing the U.S. It's not about critiquing anyone, any country. It's about human rights.
Right.
Is what I'm hearing from you, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Because look, the United States is talking about universal human rights. They are talking about being humane, and these people put people on solitary confinement. Oh, for me, it was, believe it or not, just 4 months. I've met people who spent 6 years on solitary confinement. People on Supermax, they spend tens of years in solitary confinement. Who are you people? Look and look. I've been not a terrorist. I have never been charged with terrorism. I've never been dangerous. I was a student, and they put me on solitary. Are you really?
And it was actually a technicality, correct? And for our listeners, to if you could clarify the technicality, it was something about a registration or something.
Yeah, basically, as my lawyer said, and I completely agree, if they they wanted this case public. They made a movie, The Red Sparrow, where the main character looks like me. They released it 2 months before my arrest. And once I was arrested, everybody said, oh, look, she's the Red Sparrow. Guys, it's an imagined story from somebody's sick mind. And it's actually a very bad movie. And then everybody quotes it now. So I look, Americans now say, like many on media and social media, they would say, "Oh, she has been, sleeping with senators. Show me just one senator I slept with." No one, because I didn't do it. But they blamed me doing this, and they just distracted my reputation so much. This is what they needed. They needed a boogeyman, and they made me a boogeyman. Like, look at these Russians, and this is what they do. Like they said in court when my lawyer asked, like, guys, what's your evidence? Like, basically, it's a paperwork filling question, and we were ready to talk. I talked to the Senate Intelligence Committee voluntarily. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't running away. Like I said, guys, I didn't do anything bad. Let's talk. No, they put me in prison. And as they told me in court, this guy who was an expert from the FBI, who didn't even see my case, so he said, well, the evidence is, well, Russians always do it. This is not the evidence, guys. This is not how you, in the United States, in the country that considers itself as the front man for democracy, for the human rights, for the law. This is not the example I want to show to the world, but that's what happened to me.
I really appreciate you sharing so much of what, happened to you with us today. And I'm sure that, many of the American listeners just really hadn't heard your voice. So if you could talk a little bit just briefly about where you are now. And again, I want to emphasize, I really admire when you talk about a Russian-American friendship, because there's a lot of hot rhetoric going on between the two countries among the powerful elites. But I don't think it reflects the citizens of each country. I think all of us want peace, especially, during the pandemic. So briefly, if you could tell me where you are.
I can actually give you, not just tell, look, now I'm at school. It's MGIMO. It's a foreign relations school. And believe it or not, one of the first questions that the students ask is say, what can we do to restore the relationship with the United States? We don't want to be enemies. We don't want war. These are the young students. Isn't it fantastic? So we are still keep fighting for the hearts of the Americans, because we really want to be friends. We're nice people. We're not like they're trying to portray us, the elites and the American government. But let me give you a little, tell you a little secret. So we are planning, and I hope it works this year, to have a Russian American friendship dinner here in Russia. Yes, they put me in prison for doing American Russian dinners in the United States, but guess what? We want to have a peaceful, a joyful Christmas celebration for the Americans that are living here now in Russia, because we're not enemies. And I'm going to fight for the peace. Yes, exactly, fighting for the peace, for the hearts of the people, because it's not about, it's about politics. It's not about people. We have a lot of mutual interests, and I would love our nations to be friends. And I'll keep trying, despite all the obstacles that I have in life.
That's beautiful, Maria. And you have a friend in me, and I'm an American, and I think there are many Americans that would express that to you, that they appreciate that and appreciate our nations cooperating and peace. So thank you so much. This was such a wonderful conversation. I hope we talk again. And
would love to. Look, let's just schedule it, what time works, and we can do. Look, I did, first of all, I enjoy speaking English, really, because I have to have practice. And I would just talk to you without any interviews, just because you're a wonderful person and I want to know your story, just personally. And let's schedule some time on the weekend, maybe, so we just can chat. But the podcast is fine too, whatever works for you. You just want something fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I would love a personal conversation. That would be great. And and for all our listeners, I just want to say, I know it's been quite a year with the pandemic and a lot of things happening in the world. And let's take a break, enjoy our families and holidays, and broker peace amongst all of ourselves, and help each other. And the podcast will be back on January 14th. In the meantime, Maria, thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. And I really appreciate it. You take care.
Tara, just one thing. This is very important, okay? As Americans like to say in Russian, очень важно, very important. Merry Christmas, guys.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you. And доброе утро, and спасибо.
Thank you so much, too.